Have you ever wondered what true love looks like? Picture this. A golden retriever, trapped in wet cement, fighting for her life. But she's not alone. Her tiny puppy stands at the edge, barking desperately, refusing to give up on his mother. The construction site was alive with noise. Metallic clang of hammers echoed through the air, mingled with the hum of cement mixers and the voices of workers, shouting directions at one another. Dust floated like a fine mist above the ground, coating everything in a pale gray film. Among the chaos, a danger unfolded unnoticed by many. Daisy, a golden retriever with gentle brown eyes, had wandered into the half-finished building in search of food. She was thin and weary, her fur dulled from weeks of struggle on the streets. Yet despite her exhaustion, she carried within her an unshakable strength. She was a mother. Her single surviving puppy, a tiny bundle of golden fur named Hope, followed at her heels wherever she went. That afternoon, Daisy's nose led her toward the smell of something that resembled food. But in her hunger, she didn't see the pit of freshly poured wet cement near the center of the site. With a sudden slip, her paws sank deep into the thick gray mixture. She tried to pull back, but the cement clutched her legs like quicksand. By the time she realized what had happened, her chest was already trapped, her fur coated in the sticky substance. The more she struggled, the deeper she sank. Hope barked frantically from the edge of the pit, circling, his tiny paws scratching at the hard ground. His cries pierced through the noise of the construction site. To him, Daisy wasn't just his mother, she was his whole world. Workers paused, puzzled by the high-pitched barks. One of them, Miguel, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, followed the sound. What he saw froze him. A dog trapped almost up to her shoulders in wet cement. Blindfolded by a crust of hardened mix on her face, her nose barely free for air, and next to her, a puppy whimpering desperately. Dios, Miguel gasped. "We need help here." Within seconds, a small crowd of workers rushed over. Some shook their heads, already assuming it was too late. But Daisy let out a faint whine, her ears twitching under the weight of cement. She was alive, barely. Miguel crouched low, speaking gently. "Hang on, girl, we're going to get you out." The workers scrambled for tools, shovels, buckets, anything that could remove the cement. Time was against them. As it hardened, Daisy's chances would vanish. Hope barked louder, his tiny body trembling. He pawed at Miguel's leg, as if begging him to hurry. Miguel gave him a reassuring pat. "Don't worry, little one. We won't let your mama go." The rescue began. Two men shoveled carefully around Daisy, removing layers of wet cement. Another brought water to soften the edges. Miguel knelt at her side, his hand sinking into the muck to free her fur. Daisy whimpered but stayed still, her instincts telling her these humans meant no harm. Her breaths came shallow, each one a battle. Her blindfolded eyes darted behind the crust, searching for hope. The puppy whined back, pressing his nose close to hers whenever the workers cleared enough space. That tiny touch seemed to give Daisy the strength to endure. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat rolled down Miguel's face, mixing with dust and cement. His arms ached, but he didn't stop. "Come on, girl, just a little more." Finally, with a collective heave, they managed to lift Daisy's upper body free. Cement clung heavily to her fur, but her head was clear, her eyes blinking open at last. She coughed, shook her head weakly, and the first thing she saw was Hopetail wagging furiously despite his fear. The workers cheered, but Miguel knew the battle wasn't over. Daisy's back legs were still trapped, and her body trembled from exhaustion. If they weren't careful, she could collapse. "Easy," Miguel muttered. "We'll do this together." Piece by piece, the cement gave way. At last, after what felt like an eternity, Daisy's hind legs were freed. She collapsed onto the dusty ground, too weak to stand, immediately clambered onto her chest, licking her face with frantic devotion. The sight silenced the crowd. Hardened men who spent years in construction felt their throats tighten. Miguel wiped his hands and knelt beside her. "She needs medical care now." They wrapped Daisy in a blanket, carrying her gently to a truck. Hope refused to be separated, curling into the crook of her neck as they drove to the nearest veterinary clinic. At the clinic, the veterinarian gasped when he saw Daisy's condition. Cement burns covered parts of her skin, her lungs strained from inhaling dust. Yet through it all, Daisy's eyes remained fixed on her puppy. Whenever Hope whined, she raised her head weakly, reassuring him that she was still there. Treatment began immediately. The vet shaved away hardened fur, washed the cement from her skin, and placed her on fluids. Hope paced the edge of the table, refusing to leave. The staff allowed him to stay, recognizing that his presence gave Daisy the will to fight. Days passed. Slowly, Daisy's strength returned. The burns healed, her breathing steadied, and her coat began to shine again. Through it all, Hope never left her side. He curled up against her belly each night, warming her, reminding her of why she had endured. Miguel visited often, bringing food and toys. He had never forgotten the desperate look in Hope's eyes or the courage Daisy showed, even while trapped. To him, they weren't just strays, they were survivors, a family bound by love. One afternoon, as Daisy walked unsteadily around the recovery yard, Hope bouncing at her heels, Miguel knelt down. "How would you two like a real home?" Daisy stopped, her head tilting, eyes soft. Hope barked happily, wagging his tail. Miguel smiled. "I'll take that as a yes." Weeks later, Daisy and Hope settled into their new life. Miguel's small house became their sanctuary. Daisy slept on a soft bed by the window, no longer fearing hunger or cold. Hope grew stronger each day, chasing butterflies in the yard, always circling back to his mother. The bond between them only deepened. Daisy, once a stray fighting to survive, now carried herself with quiet pride. She had been to the edge of despair and returned guided by the cries of her puppy and the kindness of strangers. Whenever Miguel watched them together, he felt his heart swell. He knew that saving Daisy had been more than an act of rescue, it had been a lesson. A reminder that love, whether human or animal, had the power to pull life from the darkest traps. The story of Daisy and Hope spread quickly through the town. Workers who had witnessed the rescue shared it with their families. Photos of Daisy's recovery circulated online, inspiring thousands. People saw not just a dog and her puppy, but the resilience of a mother's love and the compassion of a man who refused to look away. In the end, Daisy became more than just a survivor. She became a symbol, a reminder that even in the harshest places, hope can be found. And sometimes, that hope comes in the form of a tiny puppy barking at the edge of a cement pit, refusing to let the world forget his mother's fight.